The Knicks, they come into their matchup tonight against the Blazers, riding a 4-game winning streak. They've started to find some rhythm on both ends of the floor, but there are still big questions hanging over this team, from Karl-Anthony Towns' role to lineup fit to what does the front office do as the trade deadline approaches. So, to help us break it all down, let's welcome in my guy, Jonathan Macri, the Dean of Knicks Film School, here with me now. J-Mac, what's good? Please tell me that you are staying warm, because it is brick outside.
Yeah, I know. We were just talking before we hit record, and I was saying how I lost a couple fingers this morning walking my daughter to the bus. So wear those gloves and hats, everybody. Scarf up if that's your preference. But yeah, hey, look, the Knicks are helping me feel a little warm and toasty on the inside. So there's that.
Hey, you couldn't say that a little bit over a week ago. Wouldn't have said that. But
No.
here we are. Here we are now. Knicks having won 4 straight. So let's talk about that, J-Mac, because the Knicks, they've won 4 straight coming in tonight's game. When you dig into the film, as you do, and you look at the numbers, what's the biggest indicator that this streak is sustainable rather than just a hot patch or hot stretch that we're seeing from this team right now?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's always, whenever you have a stretch like this where a team that I think, as you say, a week ago, they were 18th or 19th in the league in defense, and they have now been first in the league in defense by a considerable margin. There's probably going to be some luck having to do with that, and sure enough, if you look at how opponents are shooting over the last 4 games against the Knicks, it is by far the lowest opponent effective field goal percentage in the league, 44.4%. The next lowest is 47.5%. So they're getting a little bit lucky. That said, the one thing that I do want to highlight is that the Knicks are turning over their opponents in this stretch at a much higher rate than they usually do. So for the season, before these 4 games, the Knicks were a little bit below average when it came to opposing turnover rate, so how many turnovers they were generating. In this stretch of the last 4 games, they are 3rd in the league in opponent turnovers. And we've talked about this before. I think if you look at the ideal version of this Knicks defense, it's not that they're always going to hold up, but it is guys like OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, getting into passing lanes, making things happen both on and off the ball. And I think you're seeing more of that over this recent hot stretch.
Yeah, we have, and we saw some of that the other night against Toronto. OG Anunoby with a season-high 6 steals there. So getting those passing lanes helped the Knicks, particularly in that 3rd quarter. Now, we got to talk about Karl-Anthony Towns, J-Mac, because he continues to be at the center of both on-court questions and trade speculation. So with, just under a week now, which is crazy, to go until the trade deadline, do you still believe in Cat? And can he maximize his full potential in the Knicks uniform?
It's so strange because I think there's been a lot of conversation this year about Cat's role and how much he is being asked to do. The term sacrifice has been bandied about a lot. And yet, if you watch the actual games, his role on the offense doesn't look all that different from last year. And if you go and look at his usage rate, which kind of measures how many shots a guy's getting, how much of the offense they're monopolizing, it's basically the same as last year. So the question then becomes, well, why is he struggling? And the area that I keep going back to is his struggles around the rim. So last year, on drives, they weren't always pretty, but he was shooting almost 53% on field goals out of drives. And if you look at this year, that number is down to a little over 49%. Now, 53 to 49 may not seem like a big deal, but this is a massive part of his game. He's the 2nd most frequent driver on the Knicks after Jalen Brunson. He's turning it over more on drives. He is, just not as effective in those situations. And if you look at his numbers in the restricted areas, so close to the rim, he's shooting almost 10% lower on those specific shots than he did last year. So I don't know if it is a comfort level with him. I don't know if he's just worried, about where is he going to be after the deadline. But I think if he just goes back to the player he was last year, which is a more effective player when he has the ball in his hands, I think he'll be fine. I wish I had the answer as to whether or not that guy was going to appear, maybe once we cross Thursday's deadline.
Yeah, we haven't seen it, and you're right. He's shooting a career low in terms of at the rim. That 10% less he's shooting at the rim this year as opposed to last year. That's huge. That is a huge difference from Cat. Don't have the answers, but hopefully it'll come soon. Or it might come by the deadline. We will see. Now, some of the teams, I would say best basketball, J-Mac, over the last 4 games, and I know you've noticed this too, it's been when Cat's been on the bench. And the starters, they haven't been great together all season. So right now, what lineup combinations have made the most sense for this team, and which ones still feel like a work in progress for you?
Yeah, you mentioned the starters, and I just want to point out, there was some talk like last year the starters were okay. Not really. They were, outscored after January 1st. They were severely outscored in the playoffs, and this year they're drawing about a dead even net rating. And the interesting thing to point out about when the starters are out there this year, they're actually shooting it really well. When those five guys are on the court together, very, very efficient, but they're turning the ball over a lot. They don't get to the line. And the thing that is perhaps most surprising when you look at the Knicks as a team, they're not getting any offensive rebounds, that five-man group, which tells me that there is just a level of energy lacking when those five guys are out there together. You talk about, well, what works better? Look, I could point out that when you insert Mitchell Robinson for Karl-Anthony Towns and you keep those other four guys the same, the numbers are very good, but it's an extremely limited sample size. I would say two things. Number one, Deuce McBride, when he is put into pretty much any combination with the other starters, the numbers are through the roof. So is there, the organizational intestinal fortitude to make perhaps a drastic change, whether it's a Josh Hart or even someone like a Mikal Bridges moving them to the bench? I don't know if they have the stomach for that. And then, you look at these three wings that were supposed to operate so well together, OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, and Mikal Bridges. The numbers have not indicated that those three guys together have ever been really good. So that's kind of what I go back to, because I mean, let's just talk realistically. They're not going to bench Karl-Anthony Towns. So if you're hoping for that, I think you should probably look elsewhere for answers.
Yeah, that's not happening. You talked about the organizational fortitude. Would they do this with Mikal Bridges? Probably not. They gave him 5 first-round picks for him. I know we saw Mikal Bridges take some accountability the other night, but I'm not necessarily sure they're doing that, J-Mac. That might be a big ask. But the data is good, like you said, with Deuce in a lot of these lineups. We've seen Mitch's impact as well, too.
Yeah.
Let's look at this matchup specifically against the Blazers tonight.
Sure.
What do you think are the key tactical challenges that Portland presents? We saw the Knicks play them just a couple weeks ago, and which Knicks players are most likely to swing this game against the Blazers?
Yeah, I mean, to go back to turnovers again, the one thing that the Blazers really struggle with is turning the ball over. They do it too much because Denny Avdia, who's not a traditional point guard, runs their offense. But the guy that I'm looking at is Jalen Brunson, and it's not because of his offense. I think the biggest revelation from that Blazers game the last time when they came back in the fourth quarter and won it was how much Jalen Brunson held up on the defensive end in the fourth quarter. They were being a little bit more liberal in terms of letting him switch on to Denny Avdia when, they were drawing, a screener up into the action. And then, of course, the off-ball defenders were locked in and more aware and helping Brunson out. But at the end of the day, Jalen Brunson just needs to hold his own on the defensive end. I know we've talked about that a lot this year. I think he's been better since he has come back, or since, they've played a little bit better of recently. But I want to see more there, and so if he could hold up, because he's the one glaring weak spot, every team's going to target it, especially a team like the Blazers that has a big wing who handles the ball in Avdia.
Yeah, with Brunson, that's a good point, J-Mac. You've seen him be a little bit better since he's come back from the ankle injury. You even saw down the stretch against Philly. I thought he held his own against some of the quick guards that we saw against Philadelphia last Saturday. So we know that's key. If Brunson could play that level of defense, just hold his own, things could be a little bit better for the Knicks.
You could only hide a guy so much. At some point, they have to take a little bit more responsibility.
That is more than fair. Last thing for me here, J-Mac. As we approach the heart of the season, which we're in right now, and then the trade deadline, do you see this current version of the Knicks as a true contender foundation, or still a team searching for its final form? How do you view this Knicks team right now as we approach the trade deadline?
I think the two things that I'm looking at are two things that we've already talked about, which is, can Cat get back to being the guy that we know he is capable of being, and can they figure out the starting five, or again, does Mike Brown have the leeway to make a big change there? Look, I still think at the end of the day, they are the best team in the East. I think they have the highest ceiling in the East, and I think if you give me them versus any team that they might face in the playoffs, if they're playing pretty close to how they've played over the last 4 games, I'm going to pick them to win that series, which means I'm ultimately going to pick them to make the finals. And look, if you make the finals, I didn't think it happened. I need to see a little bit more, though. Those 2 areas that I mentioned, I think they have to address those areas. And the other thing, with this team, with inconsistency has become a part of their DNA. So what I've been fond of saying recently, yeah, they could win any series in the East. They could also lose almost any series in the East, depending on, the opponent. So are they a contender? I think you could say that they are. But I need to see a little bit more from them if I'm really going to have a lot of faith heading into the postseason.
Hey, that is fair. We saw a stretch where they only won 2 games in an 11-game stretch. They had lost 4 in a row. Now they've won 4 in a row. I think it's fair to say you want to see a little bit more. But it would be nice, J-Mac, if they have some good vibes heading into the trade deadline and maybe able to make some moves on the margins. We'll see what the Knicks are able to do. That is Jonathan Macri of Knicks Film School. We actually just did a whole talk about the Knicks, and we didn't even bring up the guy that plays in Milwaukee. I'm just not going to say his name. We actually didn't even do that. So that is nice.
Good job by us.
Yeah, it's a good job. We didn't bring it up. I'm sure it's going to come up later this week. I'm positive about that, but we didn't bring it up in this chat. J-Mac, stay warm, man, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Dad.
And thanks for watching New York Got Game. Boom shakalaka.